Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to discuss some big changes happening over at Microsoft with the Xbox One, Xbox Live Gold, and even the Xbox 360 in some ways. Of course, the first one being the new Xbox One that you'll be able to purchase. An Xbox One that no longer comes with Kinect, that will be priced at $399 or £349 or 399 euros respectively. So they've taken off the Kinect and they've dropped the price, putting the Xbox One in line with the PlayStation 4. Now, it's not available immediately. You can go out and pre-order it, but it will be releasing on June 9th. We will also see some big changes coming in June in terms of what's going to be happening with Xbox Live games with Gold, but more of that later. Let's talk a little bit about the Kinect and its removal. Now, of course, the immediate thing, the first thing that you'll see a reaction as a consumer is cheaper. That's great, right? Now, for me, the price of the Xbox One as well as the PS4 has never really been an issue. They're not expensive. $500? We must live in a world where people really do not have any cash at all, which I feel bad for those people to some degree, unless, of course, that's self-inflicted and you choose to work a really miserable job, or for whatever reason, maybe you can't. But $500 for a console that will probably last you 10 years is a ridiculously good deal. 10 years, lots of good memories, lots of good games, $500. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that in terms of value for something, and people just don't see that for some reason. To them, $500 is like the end of the world, and I'll never understand that. I honestly will not. People pay more than that for smartphones these days, which burn out in like 3 years, and yes, a smartphone's great. I can pull out my iPhone, I can check my email, I can look at my videos. It's all fantastic, but it's just kind of a passing thing every day, you know? Most people just stare at it aimlessly. In fact, it's probably done a lot of negativity in terms of social interactions with the phone, but you know, my console brings me a lot of good memories, a lot of good times with my friends, lets me play a lot of really great games, and that's why I have no problem paying even I would have paid $600 to be frankly honest with you. I would have paid $600 for the PS4 or the Xbox One, and now a lot of people might call me absolutely batshit crazy for that, but that's just my opinion. So the price point for me is hard to sort of look at, you know, and just say like, oh, $100 off. I mean, that's great, it's cheaper. A lot of people will probably look at that, maybe even go out and purchase one when they make that decision. However, you know, I don't know how much it's actually going to benefit Microsoft. You know, I think I guess when you look at it, it should be a direct benefit. Oh, it's cheaper, people will buy it now, but the fact is you have this really silly fanboy war going on constantly between consoles and PC. It's a non-stop debate when you talk about gaming. You know, people can't just play what they like on wherever they like it. They have to instead, like, pick one side, assault the other side. And at the end of the day, what they forget is that without that side that they hate, whether it be a PC gamer hating on consoles, a console gamer hating on PC, an Xbox fanboy hating on a PS fanboy, a Sony fanboy, you need that other side. You need that side you hate, because that's competition. Without that competition, you then get monopolies, which leads to overpriced software, overpriced hardware, and just general poor quality, you know, smaller quantity of everything. Competition is a must. You need competition. It's just something you have to have. So stop and think. Again, I've said this in the past like 500,000 times. So really the question I have for you guys is, even if you're someone who never plans on buying a console, from a theoretical, you know, point of view, does that price drop make the Xbox One a more viable option for someone like yourself? Or maybe you're somebody who hasn't purchased an next-gen console and you really wanted the Xbox One, but somehow that extra $100 put it out of your price range, you just couldn't do it. Is it now back in the game for you? You know, is that something that you would now look at when you go to purchase your next-gen console? Let me know in the comment section below. I really want to hear from you guys. Now, I've talked to a lot of people in the past, around the same time the Xbox One launched, and of course we've seen tons of things on the internet. And a lot of people have said that, you know, they wished the Kinect was gone because they knew it would bring it down $100 and then they would consider purchasing one. But look what happens when you take away the Kinect. You know, I'm not saying it's a 100% positive thing removing the Kinect. In fact, I think it's sort of 50-50. Maybe even 25-75 in favor of the Kinect staying, you know, would have been the better option. Because what Microsoft has done, if they sort of looked at what they originally were marketing to us, is like this grand device that was going to have a lot of really great uses in the future. Now, me personally, I don't get the direction that they're going with the Kinect, but I think there's a lot of things that could have been done with it on a smaller level, even probably on a cheaper level, you know, like head tracking. I've talked about this again in the past. That kind of ties in with what I was talking about last week with first-person immersion, how, you know, head tracking is in very few first-person shooter experiences, and they actually did integrate it into Battlefield 4. Sadly, it like rarely works. It's really poor down. The calibration system sucks. And it's also not really something you can use while in first person, similar to the way that Arma does it, where you're actually allowed to head track completely. Now the funny thing is, the original Kinect on the 360 was actually really good at being used for head tracking. You could plug it in your PC if you modded it, and I actually did this and used it for head tracking. Sadly, they removed that and I haven't been able to use it, but I used to use it as a head tracking device in Arma 2 all the time, and it was wonderful. I absolutely loved it to death. I can't compare it with the Track IR because I've never owned one, but a lot of people said it was just as good, if not a little bit more responsive even in some ways. Which is impressive for something that doesn't track based on a sensor, you know, it tracks based on actual motion of a human. Now the Kinect 2.0 is obviously improved, we know that. It's a much more higher resolution camera, it's much better at tracking things, so why aren't, you know, we seeing more small uses like that, you know, the head tracking, and there's just a lot of small details that you could use the Kinect 2.0 for to enhance gameplay experiences. Dead Rising 3 does a really good job, it's really simple, the idea of pushing the controller away to shove a zombie off of you. It seems ridiculous, it seems cheesy, but I liked it, you know, it felt good, it was natural, and if anything, it did actually enhance my gameplay experience. It's that small bit of immersion, and, you know, we need to see more uses of the Kinect like that. That's what I think is a good start for it. Now, that also kind of invalidates the Kinect in being so powerful, because you don't really need something that powerful to do things like that. I mean, the Track IR is, actually, I've not thought this out. The Track IR is $150. The Kinect sensor, $100. I mean, when you look at the amount of money that's come off the Xbox One, so in many ways, why are we even complaining? Track IR, $150. The Kinect does what the Track IR does. It could do what the Track IR does. It's even more powerful and has more elements, and it costs less. So that discussion, my argument with myself there, is completely thrown out the window. But anyways, moving on. Again, this is kind of a bad thing in my terms, and when you look at Microsoft, just a little bit, because it was something they pushed so hard, and now they're kind of backing off on it. Number one, this does two things. Some people's eyes, this might be a bad thing for Microsoft, saying, oh, now you've just invalidated it. Of course, those are the same people that complained it was there in the first place. You can't make anyone happy these days. Everyone's miserable. People just want to be negative, so you're never going to make those people happy. Basically, what you've done is you removed the Kinect, you've made people who wanted to see the Xbox One cheaper happy, and you, at the same time, you've kind of alienated any developers from really having a want or an urge to develop with Kinect on your platform, because now developers are going to sit there in the next year and say, well, the Xbox One no longer comes with the Kinect. I mean, what is our install rate for the Kinect on the Xbox One? You know, is it really worth going out of our way to develop for the Xbox One and making some really cool features that maybe won't end up being even used in our game? So that is one negative you really have to look at. Some people might just say that's a positive because they don't want to see games with Kinect, but again, I think there's potential to use it in a way that actually does improve our gameplay experience rather than hinder it, and it just hasn't really had an opportunity to do that yet. So that's kind of a setback, and at the same time, it's going to make people happy, as I said. And again, let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below, guys. I want to hear what you think of the whole situation. What does it do for you as someone who would go out to purchase a console? Again, if you even plan on doing that, or in a theoretical aspect. But let's go ahead and move on to talk about the second announcement that Microsoft made. Just a really smart move here, okay? All of us Xbox people have always sat there with Xbox Live Gold, and Games with Gold was announced, and you know, it was cool, we got free games, but when we looked at the games we were getting, things like Halo 3, Assassin's Creed 2, like years after their launch for free, don't get me wrong, free games are always great, but then you look over at your PlayStation 4 brethren, or in this case, I just look over at my PS4 and say, oh really, you got Resogun at launch? Isn't that like didn't that game launch alongside the PS4? Yep. Yeah, I got it at launch. I mean, that's pretty cool. You know, PlayStation, Sony has done a really good job with PlayStation Plus. They really genuinely have. I mean, the only negative I have to say about it is that if you don't keep your subscription activated, you lose those games. But I guess it's kind of how they balance things out. Now, on the other hand, like I said, with Microsoft, they've always been giving us like really old games. Free games are great, but we want relevance. We want newer games. We want games that released within the past month. And that's what they're now going to be doing. Starting in June, the same time as the whole big price change thing is going to be happening with the Xbox One, we'll be seeing Halo Spartan Assault and Max the Curse of the Brotherhood. Now, those may be two games that don't really interest anyone. I know only Halo Spartan Assault somewhat interests me, but the fact is there really isn't that much available on the Xbox One right now for them to make free anyways. The real thing we have to look at there is when those games came out. Those are newer titles. You know, they've been out within the last couple months. That's what we want to see. We want to see new games. Now, Games with Gold on the Xbox 360 side of things coming in June is even better. You get Dark Souls, Charlie Murder, and Super Street Fighter 4 all for free. Those are really great picks. I mean, that is Microsoft seriously changing pace there. No more Assassin's Creed 2 and Halo 3. No, Dark Souls. amazing game that a lot of people may have not experienced. Now they're looking at Dark Souls 2 and they say, man, I'd like to try the first one, which is better in my opinion anyways. You get it for free. Charlie Murder, great side-scrolling 2D brawler that I played at PAX East almost 3 years ago and loved to death. And when it came out, was super insanely stoked as just how much of it had changed in the last 2 years. Genuinely a really great game from Ska Studios. Cannot recommend it enough. And then, of course, Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition. I mean, Ultra's coming out soon, but regardless, that's an awesome lineup of free games. Now, one of the other big changes that they announced is that you no longer will have to have an Xbox Live Gold subscription to make use of apps like Netflix or Twitch, which is just a really smart move. I mean, you have a lot of people purchasing 360s now because they're like $100 with a 4 gig RAM in it or whatever, simply to use it for Netflix and some spare games for the family. Maybe they got younger kids that are playing Lego games. Now they no longer have to worry about an Xbox Live subscription at all. They can play the Lego games by themselves, and then they can boot up Netflix at the end of the day, watch some films with some families. It's just a smart marketing decision, you know, when it comes to interacting with the consumer for Microsoft right there. And the change over these big transitions happening now that we've seen Don Matrick leave the company and Phil Spencer take over his position they're super noticeable. I mean, Don Matrick was like, the dude is like talking to a wall. He reminds me of a boss I used to have. The dude would try and crack a joke with you, you'd try and carry the joke on, next thing you know he's all stone-faced. It's like, why'd you make the joke in the first place? That was Don Matrick to me. Did not like the guy, terrible personality, and I don't understand why, because he's been in the industry for a very long time. You'd think he would have better social skills and just better customer relations, and he didn't. I mean, the launch of the Xbox One was terrible because of people like him. The reveal was terrible because of people like him just not being vocal enough, you know? If you're going to make these big choices, just speak to the people. That's really what they want at the end of the day, is honesty. And that's all that Phil Spencer has brought to the table since he's taken over the role. He's more personable, he seems like a real dude. When you hear him talk, you can tell he's passionate about games. That's the kind of person I want to see at the top. I don't want to see the CEO bum. The dude who looks like, you know, some stockbroker who just cold-faced, who has no idea what he's actually selling. I want to see the guy, you know, working on the streets, selling his product directly to people right out of his own storefront. Really personable, really passionate, and that is Phil Spencer. He's doing a great job already with the brand, and I'm really looking forward to the future of Xbox One and Xbox as a whole with Phil Spencer on board. So I think the future's looking up. Again, both consoles doing ridiculously well. We can sit here and talk about the fanboy war all day. The fact is that the Xbox One and the PS4 have sold better than any console in history. Pick a one, it doesn't matter. You know, I know the Xbox One sold less than the PS4. It still is one of the best-selling consoles in history. They're both doing extremely well. It is a great time to be a gamer. And this is just the start of things, guys. The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are just getting off the ground. We have barely any games. We have a lot to look forward to. Moving towards the end of this year, we've got things like Watch Dogs and Destiny and The Division, The Witcher coming to PC as well as to the console. You know, a lot of really great titles doing a lot of really cool things coming to gamers everywhere. So let's all just sit back, stop having these, you know, massive rage wars about everything, and just enjoy the games that we enjoy playing on whatever platform we choose to play them on. And remember, the competition is good. Competition keeps the consumers safe, so don't ever wish death or destruction on any of your adversaries, because you really need them to stick around. There's always got to be a war going on in this sort of area. You know, that war is actually good for the consumer. You need that to continue to happen. You need that war to continue to strive in some ways. So when one side wins, everybody loses. Let me know what you guys have to say about the subject as a whole, or anything you'd like to throw about consoles or PC gaming or whatever games, anything you have to say about the whole situation in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next one.